We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the Halting Winter podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the Halting Winter podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is recently retired City Manager of Burlington, North Carolina, Craig Honeycutt. Craig, you have an amazing story. Can't wait to dive into it. But first, just thanks for being here today. Thanks for taking time for the podcast.
I really appreciate being asked, so thank you.
Well, I remember connecting with you, man. I don't know, what is it, a year and a half, 2 years ago, when we did the podcast that launched this kind of focus on city, county managers, administrators. It was called the Municipal Tightrope, and it was because I had been working with municipalities for about a year before that in various kind of connections with executive coaching and consulting and speaking. And I was like, what is this city manager position? I kind of been working with solid waste and water. And I thought this city manager position is so fascinating. And so I interviewed, I think it was over 50 city managers from across the nation. You were one of them. And I just, man, your insights were, and we had just a great conversation. I was like, this guy's going to be great for the podcast. And so here we are, finally. You just retired from an amazing career. And that's what we're going to wind through today. We've got town manager, city manager, county manager, assistant city manager, back to which I don't even understand how you were like an assistant city manager for a blink of an eye. So we have to unpack that story. But before we do all that, let's do what we do here on the podcast. Take us back to the beginning, Craig, and tell us about where you were born and a little bit about the childhood that shaped you.
So I'm a North Carolina guy, born, raised, lived throughout the state, raised in eastern North Carolina. We moved to Southern Pines and Pinehurst, where the U.S. Open is. Moved there when I was like 12. Just incredible parents that I've had that really shaped me. They were married for 62 years and they both passed away last year, but just an incredible family, incredible brothers. Very blessed to be where I'm at and having the upbringing that I had. And it was very much a family that was committed to public service. My dad worked for the state. My mom also worked for the state, but she also was an elected official with the city of Aberdeen. So again, just a long, deep background and roots. My younger brother, Andy, really started me down this route when he graduated school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And he said, hey, this doesn't require math. This doesn't require science. This does not require algebra. So why don't you consider public administration? So that's how I kind of got into it. So he was already a city manager in Wrightsville Beach. He was city manager in Burgall, North Carolina. So he had experience, and I kind of fell into it from that.
Oh, this is fascinating. I think you're the first person I've had on the podcast that had an older sibling in the line of work. Okay, let's go back as you said something interesting about Pinehurst, right? You moved to Pinehurst. You're about 12 years old. So again, you're in that age where kind of awareness, kind of seeing things in a bigger perspective. I had on Janice Ellen Jackson, who was the city and county administrator in Augusta, Georgia, where obviously they play the Masters. And so this is interesting to be a part of a city that has national attention for a moment. And so kind of what the nation thinks about a place is, ooh, Pinehurst and fancy and it's this. What was it like to live? What was Pinehurst like on a normal day when, it doesn't have all this hoopah pod? What was that place like? And did you have any awareness of kind of what local government did to provide the modern services that obviously you know now?
No idea. I tell people jokingly, and this is my Southern accent, when I was growing up, it was Pinehurst, and now it is Pinehurst. So, it's welcome to Pinehurst. So I really did not appreciate where I was from. When I was young, I used to sneak on number two and hide beer down the second hole. There's probably old beer cans still there, but I snuck on, probably played it 50 times. And you didn't appreciate how wonderful of an experience that was when you lived there. But now that you step back and step away, you really do appreciate that experience and that background and that whole area.
So as you're growing up, what is Craig into? Are you playing sports? Are you just sneaking on the golf course having beers? What did your childhood kind of look like? And again, you kind of from what you shared there, you didn't kind of know what you wanted to do. What were you interested in? Give us a little perspective of who Craig was.
No idea. So my undergrad career was 9 years. So my brothers called it a decade of excellence. So I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was going part-time and, taking a year off or 2 years off. And then once my brother got into the profession and said, hey, you really can make a difference. You really can provide services to your community. You really can make a living at doing this and not make widgets. I decided, hey, there's more to life than just playing golf. So that's what kind of got me into the profession and started me down that path.
What got your brother interested in it? How did he find out about it?
He went to Appalachian State University, and App has just an incredible program for city and county managers, and it was really geared to be city and county managers. So he kind of just fell into it, and so again, I kind of fell into it as well.
Well, maybe I'll fast forward for just a minute because now, for the last number of years, you've served as an adjunct professor at Elon University there in North Carolina. When you look at both the university experience of how undergrad and graduate students interact with the classes that have local government connection, what do you see? How can we? It's one of my chief concerns, and one of my hopes for this podcast is that both current city county managers are inspired by the various stories, realizing that it's always cool to you go to a conference. I'm sure you went to plenty of North Carolina city manager, county manager conferences, and it's cool to meet your colleagues. But I hear every week someone will email me, text me, and be like, "Oh, you had on so and so." I have known them for a decade and I had no idea this and this and this about them. And so I love, sharing these stories for that reason, to encourage current leaders. But I think there's something about when you were young, you don't know what you don't know. And I think you can get in your head and disqualify yourself from, well, I could never. Right. You might have felt that and you're like, well, okay, my brother's in, but I could never, because I don't know X. I don't know algebra. I don't know X, Y, and Z. And I think sharing these stories helps young people go, oh, maybe there is an opportunity for me. As you've been at Elon University serving as an adjunct professor, what do you see? What do you think? How can we get younger people to be aware of? But even in the classes, maybe how can we get them to see it as viable for really any skill set, any passion? Because I think so many paths and so many roles feature so many unique skills and passions when it comes to local government.
Well, I teach intro to public administration and also American politics. And the first thing that I tell the kids when they come in on syllabus day is, did you think of government this morning when you got up? And they're like, what? And I said, did you take a shower? Yeah, we took a shower. Well, where did the water come from? Who monitored the water to make sure it was clean enough for you to use and that it was not at an unhealthy level? When it went down the drain, who took care of the discharge? Who made sure that it was discharged correctly? Did you walk down the sidewalks to get to class? What about this building you're in? There was a zoning permit, there's fire codes, there are building codes. Everything that we do has some type of governmental oversight or governmental input. And what I really want them to see is not be jaded about government, that government really is a positive thing. Government really is not there to be the pain in the butt that a lot of people thinks that it is, but it really is there for a purpose for the general public. So you'd really want them not to be jaded coming in. They're jaded at the left or they're jaded at the right, and there's really no more those people in the middle ground. And moderation and is not a bad word. To go across and reach your hand across the aisle is not bad. It's not giving up your principles. It is making sure you're doing what's best for all citizens within a community.
I love that. And it's such a great reminder that, again, your water doesn't flow on red or blue pipes. It's got to flow no matter who's in office, and it should flow predominantly the same. And it does flow, right? It
Right.
doesn't matter what administration is. Your water's going to come to you. Your sewer is going to be taken away and dealt with. And that's the beauty of local government. I think local government doesn't really have time to play politics. And we're going to get to this just about kind of the context and the place today of what's distracting, I think, and what's hard about leading in local government. Before we get to that, let's look at your story then, because finally, after your decade of excellence, you graduate, and I have the town of Fletcher, North Carolina, is the first place on the career, and you served there as the town manager. Was there any other positions you held, or maybe an internship, anything in local gov before, or they just are like, you were so astounding, they're like, we got to give Craig a town management position?
So my last semester in college, I had an internship in Troy, North Carolina. And Troy had a reputation of really placing managers into their first job. So worked with Matt Bernhard and the mayor there. They were just incredible people. But the thing that Troy gave me was the opportunity to do everything. So police ride-alongs. I rode on the back of garbage trucks. I went down sewer manholes. I was up in the middle of the night doing flag work, while people were fixing water line breaks. Did Troy Fest, which was a community event I was chairman of. Things like that, did everything from the ground up. And that really gave me that base of, hey, this is fun. And this is really providing a service. So Troy gave me so much experience. So I came in with a little bit on my resume, which was very cool and very lucky. So I would always encourage you, if you are interested in being a manager, don't go to the Charlottes of the world. Don't go to the Greensboros. Start in the small municipalities and counties that are really needing dedicated and educated and professional young people to do their jobs. Because right now, the job market for those entry levels in small towns, it's weak because everybody wants to go to the Charlottes. Everybody wants to go to the nightlife. Everybody wants to go where outlet centers are. They need to understand, hey, I need to put my time in. and really get my base understanding of what a zoning ordinance is. Do I need to be the one go out there and be the code enforcement officer today? Do everything at the smaller levels, then that will build your resume to move forward for larger communities.
I love it. It's such great advice. The town of Fletcher, it's south of Asheville, about 20 minutes. I think it's west of Charlotte, about 2 hours. Tell us about what it was like. Tell us about this town. And in fact, I think it was around 27. You take the job in 1993. It's like 2,700 in 1990. By 2000, it's 4,200. And by 2010, it's 7,000. So again, this is part of the thing that you just said. When you go and you go, oh, maybe I don't want to be a part of a small town. These small towns, especially in North Carolina, South Carolina, are experiencing incredible growth, which is cool to be a part of growth because there's energy there and there's opportunity to get your hand. You got to figure out, how do I actually make a city function and flourish as it's growing? So there's some really cool opportunities. What was that like to be at Fletcher? Again, it's your first job as a town manager and in a place that's growing and got some movement.
So I was the third person hired in Fletcher. So Fletcher incorporated in 89, and I was hired in 93. So they had a clerk and a finance officer and contracted out everything, from police service to guard service, water, and so you name it, everything was contracted out. But it got to the point where we said, hey, we need to have a little bit of control internally. So we started with a recreation department. That was very important to the community. Then we started planning. What is our long-term goals and what do we want to look like? Do we want zoning? Do we need a land use plan? So got to do all of that, never when I was hired, it was really because watershed was coming in, watershed requirements were coming in North Carolina. And during the interview, they said, do you have any experience with watershed? I went, oh, sure. Yeah, got it. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, got this covered. Had no idea what I was talking about. Yeah, watershed, we're good. So, my middle name is Fletcher. So you can't tell me I did not push that during the interview. Oh my gosh, it's God's intervention. It's divine intervention that I am here today in Fletcher. So Fletcher was just an incredible opportunity. Um, Met my wife there, had my kids there. So it really felt like, home. It really did. So for 12 years, it was so much fun and we did a lot of neat things. And like you said, being part of that growth area of Asheville, we got to see a lot of different things that some communities did.
I would say too that a lot of people will not a lot. Some people will start at a smaller community, and we're trying to encourage more people to do that. But most of them stay there for a couple of years. You stay there for 12 years, which is really, I think, a cool because not only cool because of time and tenure, but because again, that growth that happened over that, you got to be a part of some really cool things and to experience too. Maybe just before we head to the next stop, I'm sure you went through a few rotations of elected officials. So I think that's the issue when you just stay and kind of do the ladder thing every 2 years you climb, you might not feel the tension of what city management is really about, which is how do I navigate different elected? How do I navigate some changes? Whether that's internally on the staff, with even the community, I'm sure as it's grown, especially a small town like that was newly incorporated, you've had people that all they know is Fletcher. Like, well, I was here before this was even a town, and then you've got new people coming in. There's a lot of cool things that are, obviously not maybe cool in the middle of them because there's tension and emotion, but you got some pretty cool, I'm sure, experiences that really defined your leadership as you moved on.
And I was very lucky in Fletcher. Even though boards did change, the core kind of moved along. So the five that or seven that I started with, I ended up still with two on the board after 12 years. So the consistency that we had, even though there was change, but consistency saying, hey, this is the way it is. This is not, we're not trying to hurt anybody. We're not trying to fight anybody. This is who we are as a board. And they really work together. And they're really committed to making Fletcher the best that it could be. So it was fun. Also, my mother-in-law lived in Fletcher. So, and I had 3 kids. So I would have been shot if I would have left anytime sooner.
So there are always mitigating factors, aren't there? Well, you
That's right.
do. In 2005, you go to the city of Laurinburg, North Carolina, to serve as the city manager. This has a population about 15,000. So again, we're kind of doubling now from where when you left Fletcher. You're on the opposite side now. This is southeast of Charlotte, about an hour and 40 minutes. So you kind of go opposite side of the state, southwest of Fayetteville, I think, about an hour. Tell us about Laurinburg and what was that like being in. Again, now it's your second, and so all the things that you kind of take for granted is this is the context I know. Now it opens up a different kind of reality for you.
Laurinburg was an incredible opportunity for me. So Laurinburg was an electricity. Laurinburg was a regional water and sewer provider. Laurinburg, had a paid fire department. When I was in Fletcher, we had a mixture of paid and volunteer. Laurinburg had an established downtown. It really had already established zoning, already established ordinances, police department. It was very established and really a well-run city. The managers that were there before are really good friends of mine. Joe Huffman uh, really did a great job there. So it was easy to stand in and fill those positions because it was such a good organization. But the experiences that I've got with utilities especially really helped a lot. Again, contracting out everything as we did in Fletcher, we did bring some stuff back in house, but having that experience with utilities, having that experience with a downtown development corporation, having those experiences being the county seat was really a lot of fun. And it really was a incredible learning curve in a quick time.
Mm. And so from there, you now go to county management, and this is for your next stop is 2009 Alamance County Government. This is a population of 180,000 between Greensboro and Durham. It's 3 cities, which again Burlington is one of them, and that's going to be the final stop, the one you just retired from. 3 cities, 6 towns, 1 village. What was it like to go from city management to county management? Tell us about some of the dynamics and differences of those 2 roles.
Um, it was an incredible learning curve. When you're a city manager, I'll tell you my favorite city county manager, the difference. When you're a city manager and you have speeding down Main Street, you go to the police chief and say, Chief, we need to run a radar on Main Street. Yes, sir, we got you covered. When you're a county manager, you go to the sheriff and say, Sheriff, how's your mama? How's your garden? How's everything? Then you spend 45 minutes of BSing. And then, hey, by the way, need a favor. Is there anything you could possibly do with respect to speeding? I know you don't work for me, but I really would appreciate if you could do that.
A lot more, right? Because that's the thing people don't realize. Like your sheriff is another elected official, and so you have elected. Yeah, you have a lot more. Not only is I remember we had Kevin Phelps. He just retired as well, city manager of Glendale, Arizona. He was the county manager in where I live up here in Seattle in Pierce County, and he was talking about it. Just it's a different speed. It's a lot more negotiation. Trying to get a lot of different people on the same bus, and how is it then trying to not only do you oversee the aspects of the county and unincorporated spots, but you have to work with those cities, those towns, those villages, and try to, talk about herding cats and talk about people. That's what, we had Peter Crichton on. He was, I love him, county manager up in Maine, Cumberland County. And he talked about, oftentimes people will see if you're a city manager and then go to the county, it's like going to the dark side. Like, why would you want to work for the county? How did
Yeah.
that feel? Did you have a lot of people that questioned, like, why would you ever work for the county?
They did, but I will be very honest. I truly enjoy. It's a different skill set, and it's like we talked about. It's a lot of negotiation. It's a lot of uh, seeing what the needs are. It's a lot of different boards, from community college to school boards to DSS boards and health boards. It's a lot of coordination, but again, it's a different skill set to try to get what you need across, but let it be their idea.
Mm. Mm.
So that was kind of fun to do. And when it worked out, it was really very beneficial, and it really made you feel good, like you really got something accomplished. But it really, the bad thing about it is, especially in North Carolina, is counties are partisan. So you either were, D or R. And, we ran every 2 years, half the boards ran every 2 years. And um, sometimes the politics got very difficult. And Alamance was a very red county. Um, and I tried to do some stuff in Alamance County that did not go over well, like raises for employees and, doing pay and classification studies and doing things that were more employee centric. And I got told one time in a board meeting, Craig, there's 100 people lining up to take their place. So why are you worried about it? And it was difficult at times. It was very difficult at times.
There's something genuinely exciting happening in local government right now. I'm seeing cities and counties use artificial intelligence in some genuinely impressive ways, both inside their organizations and out in their communities. What stands out is how practical these tools have become. It's less about headlines and it's more about really helping people do their jobs with a little more ease and a bit more focus. And that's what I appreciate about Tyler Technologies and their unique approach to AI. They're helping organizations like yours remove friction, taking repetitive, time-draining tasks off your staff plates, improving how residents engage with their local government, and giving teams more space to focus on the work only humans can and should be doing. There's no hype. There's no shortcuts. It's just helpful solutions built for the realities of local government. If you're headed to the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference, I want to encourage you to take a few minutes to connect with the Tyler team and hear real examples from counties across the country using AI in helpful, practical ways. If you're not heading to DC, you can explore Tyler's free plain language AI resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. Again, free downloads, free tools, just amazing insights to help you truly understand artificial intelligence in a way that's practical and helpful for your specific local government context. tylertech.com/winter. Now, back to the conversation. It is one of the challenges, I think, that when it's why, again, one of the reasons the podcast exists is because I think people think about government and they just complain, right? Oh, government just wants more of my money, my money, my money. But again, especially at the local level, like all those things you mentioned at the very beginning, water, sewer, you can't imagine modern day life without these services that your local government provides. And these are not inexpensive things. Like if people understood, that's why we're looking at doing an online virtual conference. We're going to call the Municipal 7, where we give 7 minutes to people across the nation in local government leadership that talk about different topics. One of the first things we want to do is a citizen academy, because I think there's some great citizen academies being run in a lot of places. A lot of cities should really look at how do you get more, not just, how do you create raving fans? Well, you got to let them come in and see all the things that you do. And I think that's the thing. If people saw all the things that happen to make your water come to you, like you say, clean and drinkable, and so it can hit your face without turning, and think about like when you go, every time I think about when last time I went to like Honduras, like don't drink the water. Don't even like brush your teeth with it. Don't do anything. It's like, we take these things for granted here. And yet, so how do we, how do we help our people engage with that? So I'm trying to remember where my train of thought was. I totally went off on Citizen Academy, and now I can't remember where I was. But what do you think? I mean, how do we do that, especially on the county level? I would think when it becomes partisan like that. Again, you're like, hey, if we don't, how can we have the best team? How can we produce the best ideas? Especially when maybe talk about this. When the county, even your city, but the county especially, when you talk about these projects, these are multi-year projects usually. And when you have staff turning over, because they're not cared for, because the pay is low, because they can find a better job in the private sector that feels, pays better, gives better benefits. That's not helping us produce the best projects and the best outcomes for our people, wouldn't you think?
110%. You can have the best, what's the old saying, the best laid plans of mice and men. If you don't have the people to implement your policies and implement your programs and provide the services, you really don't have anything. And we really need to make sure that we become employee centric and really make sure we realize and thank and appreciate those employees that really do the job. It's like you said before, we're herding the cats, but they're the ones that are doing the job on a day-to-day basis. And there needs to be appreciation and thanks to our employees, because without them, we're nothing.
Yeah.
And it got really difficult sometimes at the county because, again, it's sometimes that mindset is, well, you're a government employee, you're sucking at the teat of the taxpayer. So why should we give you raises? You got health benefits, you got retirement, you got this, you got that. They're lining up. But it's a different job market now than it used to be many, many, many years ago.
I think it's one of the things with local government too is government is slower usually, and sometimes for good reason, right? We can't just be, our city's not Amazon. It can't, if Amazon fails tomorrow, Walmart or someone's going to pick up the slack. If your city fails tomorrow, there's no other Burlington that's going to come pick up the slack, right? And so I get that, and yet we can use that as an excuse to not stay modern, to not be looking at the temperature of culture. And I think one of the things, like you say, with employees is the younger generation. Yes, it is nice. And I wish there was more appreciation for benefit packages and for retirement, which I think cities offer well. The issue is the young generation does not care about that at all. I have tried to be like, yeah, and I've talked to a lot of younger people, and they're like, not interested. Young people are not putting into their 401ks in the private sector. They want to live life now. They don't know. Like, it's kind of like, we don't know what's going to happen. Who knows how long this world's going to be around? We want to have more of life now. And so it's one of the things I think is local government. We have to think about these things and how are we being attractive? And if we want, I think there's great young people who would be a great fit in local government if we can be mindful of, because again, the other thing is we're not throwing parades. We're not throwing parades because your water, ran and your sewer and your trash was picked up, which I think is sad. It'd be great if we had more appreciation for it. And yet it is incredibly missional work. This is incredibly passionate work to be impactful of people's lives on a daily basis. Maybe talk about, because I think as you get up in government, right? That's why I think local government is so awesome, is because it's every day you are doing work that impacts people on a daily basis. And you can see the fruit of your labor is pretty clear. Did you find, I live in Olympia, which is the state capital for Washington. State level, man, there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of policy, a lot of people it's probably one of the most depressive workforces because they don't see a lot of how their work. I think a lot of it feels like policing, like you can't do businesses, you can't do. And so it can be kind of depressive. How does that feel at the county level? You're still right impacting people, but did it feel a little bit more distant than when you were a city manager?
Not really. Well, in North Carolina, we're arms of state government as far as our constitution. So we're kind of Raleigh locally, so DSS, we were tied to the state. Health department were tied to the states. We're providing courts and courthouses and jails, and our school system, capital is funded by the county, but teachers are funded by the state. Our community college system, we fund facilities, the state funds the operations of it. So again, lots of direct connections to the state. I think that's sometimes what makes it a little bit difficult, is there's so much you can't control that there's an expectation that you do control. So it really is your comment earlier about Citizens Academy is I've probably have done those for 15 years on and off. People are like, wow, I didn't know. They don't know the difference between a sheriff's department and a police department. They don't know the difference between who's a city road and a state road. So it's just government. That's all they know is I expect my roads to be clear from snow. Doesn't matter if it's state or city, doesn't matter who's responsible. I just expect them to be cleared. So we have that obligation to really try to share that information better with our citizens about who's responsible for what, so that there is that clear understanding for all.
Mm, I love it. Your next stop is Wayne County. Again, this is southeast of Raleigh, one city, Goldsboro, 5 towns, 1 village, population 120,000. I love that you've town manager in Fletcher, city manager in Laurinburg. So you get two kind of unique, different variables. You're a county manager in Alamance. Now you're a county manager in Wayne. What was it like to go to a second county and kind of see it in a different perspective?
Wayne's not too far from where I originally was born in Eastern North Carolina. Wayne was a very agriculture community, but it's also the home of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. So to have an Air Force base, they do all the F-15 training for the Air Force was absolutely one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of, was having that asset there and what that asset meant to our community and how we work together with the base commanders and how we work together. At one time they were on the BRAC list for being closed. So working with the base commanders, and they wanted to be there, and we wanted to be there, and what an economic engine they were, was so much fun. But again, coming from a county manager after 8 years in Alamance, it was really very much just kind of stepping into it. It was a lot simpler. Your first job, sometimes people can BS you, that you don't have all the knowledge, but city managers are not, or county managers as well, not supposed to have all the knowledge, just enough so we can't be BS. So
Love it. And so maybe two things. I had a Dennis Champine, who is city manager in Centerline, Michigan. He talked about just the connection. He said a partnership with their military base there has done incredible work to help them financially. There's a lot of kind of services that they do for the base that's helped them, create more infrastructure, money, opportunities. Instead of having to charge residents for taxes, they're able to have some cool partnerships. How important was that kind of relationship in just, I think a lot of people can think like, we have Joint Base Lewis McChord here, and that can operate kind of like a different world. Like you drive by it on the freeway and you see the fences and you're kind of like, okay, it's there, but it's like, it's huge and it kind of does its own thing. It sounds more like there was a real partnership and a real connectivity to the people saying that's a part of us.
it really is. They when I was there, they worked with the city of Goldsboro for a soccer facility right outside the base gate. So it was kind of a joint, hey, we're going to lease this property to you for $1 a year. But they also had some issues on base with their water and sewer, for their housing. The city was a great partner with them to make sure we got some grant funding and we got some direct allocation from the state to really help, because again, the state saw as well the importance of having Seymour Johnson within our community. So it really was wonderful. We had a committee set up between city and county members, but also base, that we would meet once a month just to make sure we were on the same page and making sure that we did socials together. And we had just all these different things to make sure they felt comfortable in Goldsboro.
I love it. And so before we actually jump to the city of Burlington, which is the next stop, you were county manager in Wayne County 2017 to 2022, which means you went through the pandemic. What was that? And again, I asked specifically because you've been a city manager now since the early 90s. And so I'm sure by the time the pandemic comes around, you feel like you got this. You've been city manager, you've been county manager, you know how to ride this bull. the pandemic kind of changes, at least it seems, it's kind of changed everything. What was that like to go through that? And did it feel like that? And now, even coming out and again going to Burlington, did it feel like you kind of had to relearn some lessons in light of, how the world worked after the pandemic? What was that like?
It was flying the plane as you were building it. It truly was. We made a bunch of mistakes, but again, we made mistakes because it was the information that was given or known at the time. But again, we were very flexible and very quick to make those changes. The biggest thing I think we did well was communication. And, there's a lot of small municipalities in Wayne County. We communicated with them all the time. Our emergency management department did a great job. Our facilities did a great job. Um, but it was very difficult. There's different philosophies out there. A lot of people said, oh, we need to work from home. Well, I kind of was on the different philosophy a little bit that, hey, if my jailers can't work from home, if my EMS employees can't work from home, if my dispatchers can't work from home, is that fair to the rest of the organization because we're public service? So we were home for about 2 weeks, but we came back and we were masked and did the best we could with social distancing at the time. Um, but I caught a lot of flack for that. But it was one of those things again, you build the plane as you're flying it, and didn't know what was the right thing to do, but wanted to make sure we were there in person to support those that had to be there. I didn't want them to think that I was at home taking a nap on my couch and just, checking email every other hour. So you wanted to be visible. And I think it gave the public a little bit of security that we were there as well, that this is bad, but we're taking precautions. We had the hand or the hand wash. We had, the door openings. We had the mask. We had all the things that we could do. We would deep clean the building every day. Everything that we could do to be open, we did. But it really was a different time.
It's interesting that you bring that up in light of the essential services. I think that's one of the things is no one really pays attention to all the essential work that had to be done that we just take for granted. And like you said, I worked with, it's actually one of the big projects that got me involved in local government was I worked with solid waste coming out of the pandemic and essential employees that had to show up and do the work. And there was a rift. And I think that Seattle is in Western Washington is a prime example of some of the consequences of that because it stayed remote forever. I mean, the state just came back, I think, this last year, and even that has been problematic because the employees now are so used to it, none of them wanted it, so they had to do kind of these halftime things. But the issue is there's a lot of people that didn't have a choice, and now there's rifts, and they wonder why their cultures are broken, and they wonder why, and that's one of the things that we have, again, is on leaders is how do we roll with this new reality? And I think that's one of the things is pointing out these are the things that leaders have to struggle with is, it's not just what's real, it's the assumptions too. When someone has a hard day because they had to come in and they're having Zoom meetings with their boss who's in their house, in their slippers with their dog at their feet. Like, what is that saying? And it's just, these are the things that cause these fractured cultures and miscommunication. And these are the weights that are on our leaders trying to navigate. What does this look like?
And it's still there today. Even when I was leaving Burlington, when we would advertise for a position, they said, well, is this remote or is this hybrid? And we really had the philosophy, and this was supported by our city council, saying that we're public servants, that we need to be available to the public. Like you said, not by Zoom, not by email, is that we need to be made available to the public. So we brought back, there's not a position right now in Burlington that is remote.
And I think that's the thing. I talk with Christopher Gilbert, town manager in Springfield, Ohio, Springfield Township, Ohio, and his big thing is customer service. And he goes, like we don't. I think that's one of the things, both private and public sector, but public sector specifically, I don't think is thought about enough. Is the experience. Like it's kind of one of those. This is kind of the tension of government. It's when you do work that is required. People have to pay taxes. People have to come get the permits. Like it's necessary so that we can kind of be like, I don't have to really think about customer service because they have to do it. And it's also why when people think about local government, it's funny that they don't even think about local government because I don't think that a local government oversees your driver's license. I think that's a state thing, but that's what we think about, right? Think about, I always use the example, Zootopia, the little cartoon movie, when they go to the DMV and it's the sloth and it's taking forever. I mean, that's kind of when people think about local government, they think about the DMV and like, I got to go, engage with local government. And it's like, but that's on us, right? We create that culture. We create that stereotype. And how can we break that? And I think part of that is, like you say, there's an importance of being in person. And you might even say, well, my role doesn't need to. I can do this from home. But then are you thinking about the team culture? Are you thinking about the team environment and how we support one another and how we engage with one another to create a really thriving organizational culture? And I think that's one of the things it sounds like you were trying to be aware of and mindful of as you were sustaining and building.
In Burlington, we had a Elon fellow that would work with us, and the person wanted to have it remote. And I was like, no, part of the culture of being a fellow is you need to learn how to work within an organization. You cannot learn that by remote, or you can't learn it in hybrid. You've got to be able to have somebody come by your office, and sometimes they'll just have a conversation or shoot the crap with you. But that is part of an office environment, and that is part of the work life that you have to be able to embrace and understand and be a part of. If you want to be a part of a team, and we always talk about, oh, the team's doing this and the team's doing that. Well, the team's got to be together. The team's got to see one another. The team's got to know what their kids are doing. The team's got to know how their mom and dad are doing. The team's got to know these things and not just, like you said earlier, the 15 minutes on Zoom and nothing.
We just went through this last week as we record this. Jennifer Moss has a book called The Burnout Epidemic, and she points out that burnout, her thesis is burnout is organizational. And she says one of the things in that is an organization, when you work for an organization, you build relationships, and you build those relationships around the water cooler. Like you just said, you walk by someone's office and you notice, oh man, and you shoot the crap and you have a conversation and you notice someone's disposition after a meeting and you connect with them, hey, can I encourage you? And you vent together, you celebrate together, you do life together. And you cannot do that on Zoom, because on Zoom, not to discount, it's great that we have these technologies. They allow us, right, to do some things like even this conversation today. We wouldn't, I'd have to come out and fly out there and the expense of that. And yet, if all we do is go, well, we're able to do it with Zoom, let's just be easy about it. Well, we miss those relationships. We miss then the things that make then when work is hard. If you just do Zoom work by Zoom, all you do is work then. You don't build the relationships. And so guess what happens when you have a hard day? There's no one to help you except you. And I think that we're learning as we look at the data to go, oh, there is something viable about being together in those spaces in between the work, in between the moments. And again, like, are we taking those things seriously? I love that you brought that up. Okay, so from Wayne County, you go back. It says here in my notes, you were the assistant city manager for a hot month. And so were you hired to become the city manager? Was there a retirement going to happen? Tell us about what brings you back to city management and specifically to Burlington.
Well, when I was in Wayne County, I still kept my house here in Elon. And so I would go down to Wayne County Monday through Friday and come back on the weekends. And part of that was my youngest son was in high school. and I didn't want to move him to go to Wayne County as a freshman. So that wanted him to finish high school here. So I would come back on Friday nights and then leave on Sunday evening. Um, it got long. It was almost 6 years. And it's a long time. My wife was very patient and very loving, and my kids were, and they're very understanding. But it was time for me to come back home. And I could have retired in 2022 at the end, but I got very blessed. David Sheet was the interim manager in Burlington, and they had an assistant's position open. And I was like, wow, that's where I want to go. Hey, finish out my career as an assistant, you know, uh, be home, you know, if you take out the travel, you take out the rent that I was paying there, it's about the same amount of money. So I would rather do that. And I've always loved Burlington. Burlington was really the gold standard here in Alamance County. So I applied and luckily got it. Well, after I got it, they were still looking for a permanent manager. And originally I did not want to apply because I was like, oh, I've been there, done that, got a t-shirt. So why not just finish my career as the assistant? But then they asked if I was interested and would I apply? And I went, yeah, why not? So if I got it, great. If I didn't, great. I was happy there. But luckily I did get it, and really got blessed to end my career as manager. Just wonderful people, wonderful organization, as strong a staff as I've ever worked with as far as their experience, education, knowledge, just great people to work with.
I love it. I love that. It's kind of like, oh, well, I'll just go in and be the assistant. I'll take it easy. I'll let someone, else take the bolts and the lightning rod, and then there you are. They call you up, and like Roy Hobb coming up to bat in The Natural, one of my favorite baseball movies. You do it, and you slam dunk. I mean, talk about ended on a high note. Again, this is population 61,000, about 30 minutes east of Greensboro, I think. Tell us about Burlington and in that area.
Burlington really is, we're right between the triangle and the triad, Greensboro being the triad and the triangle, Raleigh, Durham. It is truly growing. We just landed my last council meeting in October. We announced a $1 billion food distribution with Food Line that will be built. So we worked through the incentives and all that. So that was nice to be part of the team that says, hey, my last meeting, I was a part of that. So 600 jobs and $1 billion in investment. So very excited. But we have really good transportation, got a great airport, a regional airport, 40, Interstate 40 and 85 run right through the heart of Alamance County. So transportation is great. Our location is great. So it really is growing. We're working well with Guilford County. We're partly in Guilford County as well. It's been just a boom and a lot of fun.
I love it. As you look, maybe I want to steer towards just now that you're retired, just kind of looking back, city, county. I want to ask you a few questions in light of both how can we encourage some up and coming young people, and even some people who are young, maybe in their city management careers. What are some of the insights that you have? What made a successful career? What are some of the things you think, like you said, even when your brother was like, hey, you don't need to know, all these things. Now you, looking back, have actually been in the seat. What would you say to a young person to say, this is why you should strongly consider local government as a career path?
It truly is a change agent. In local government, we're truly change agents. But young people don't look at government as being a change agent. They see nonprofits. Most people that are most people that are in that or looking at, I'm sorry, can't even speak, are looking at public administration or looking at getting into the nonprofits. Because when you ask them that question, they say, why are you interested in nonprofits? Well, they're change agents. They do things much more quickly. There's not the bureaucracy there. I don't want to go be a cog in the wheel of a small engine in local government. I don't make a difference. My argument is you don't go in third gear, you start in first gear. And as long as you're moving forward and as long as you're making positive changes, you are being a change agent. You may not see all the benefits at one time, but if you look back and say, hey, I was part of that. I was part of the team that made these changes. I was part of the team that helped design this park. I was part of the team that helped build the funding. I was part of the team that hired the people who were doing this job. So you can really say that it's long term. It takes a little bit more time to see the long term benefits, but they're there. And you really have to just give it time and know that you are making a difference and that what you're doing is important to all citizens. And that's where I think we lose focus is that right now society is, I want something here and now. I don't want to have to wait 5 years to see the outcome of my work.
I want to take a quick moment to pause here because there's something I hear over and over again as I talk to local government leaders from across the country. The work can often feel heavy. The expectations are high, and most days it can feel like you're carrying all that weight alone. That's why I created the Municipal Leadership Development Circle, or what we call the MLDC. The MLDC is a community of local government leaders from across North America who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of significant pressure, not just in theory, but in day-to-day practice. It's a place to think clearly, learn from others who truly understand your unique context and work, and to be reminded that you're not the only one navigating these unique challenges. If you're looking for connection, perspective, and a steady place to keep developing as a leader, I'd love for you to learn more. You can find details at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
It's kind of like it seems like both personally, professionally, whatever it is, we're just so used to microwave living, right? Well, that's why I want AI. AI can just do it. And I think we're missing out. My concern with AI and all the kind of where we're at culturally is I think the journey is the joy. The journey is where we grow. It's where we find ourselves. It's where we find meaning, right? To persevere, to overcome the obstacle. It's not at the end. Like there's Super Bowl. We just said, we're recording this the day after the Super Bowl happened. And I'm sure there's a lot of guys who on that Seahawks team that are like, now what? Like we did it.
Yeah.
And now what? Like that's the problem with the mountaintop. It's cool. It's a cool view for a moment. But then it's like, now what? I'm not just going to live off that high. The high was actually in the journey. They'll look back and the memories are in the trenches of the games that they had to really fight to win to go on to the next thing.
And with your Seahawks analogy is Sam Darnold. See where Sam Darnold, started out first pick with the Jets and Panthers and, the journey that he's taken, and he can look back and say, wow, the accomplishment, it took me a while to get here, but look at what we were able to accomplish. I was thinking about Fletcher as we were talking. We did a community park in Fletcher when I was there. We bought 60 acres. Got some grant funding, and we just started with walking tracks and open fields and all this. Now, about 30 years later, it is one of the nicest parks in Western North Carolina. And you can look back and say, wow, I was part of that. I was part of the initial thought process, working with city council and working with staff. Wow, look at it now. And it really is that cool to be able to carry your kids and your grandkids and say, your granddad was part of that. You know, it is something that's lasting that will outlive me. So that I'm very proud to say that I've been a part of a lot of those projects across my career.
I love that. For the specific position of a city manager, a county manager, what do you think are the biggest skills, the thing that you would encourage someone who is either interested in that or maybe young in their career and doing that? What are the things that you think have actually benefited you the most? Is it communication? Is it knowing how to do collaboration? What skill set would you say, if I could encourage you to focus on one thing to really help your career in this specific role, it would be?
It would be to be open. It would be to be personable, to be a part of a team and not an I, to give credit to boards where boards deserve the credit. You know, we're secondary. Your boards are primary. We just implement. It may be our idea that they're implementing, but it was their idea to approve it. So to make sure that we're supportive of staff, to make sure and again, it's like you talked about earlier, it's about culture. If you don't have a good culture of the organization, you don't have a good culture, a reputation within your community, then you really are struggling. So it is about relationships, especially at the county manager level. It was my relationships working with school superintendents and community college presidents and other managers that they knew they could trust me and I knew that I could trust them. So it really is about, you know, you can hire people to do the X's and O's. You know, you need, you know, good finance people and you need good zoning administrators that can do that. But it really takes a very good, strong leader to go in and kind of herd the cats and kind of work with all different personalities that you may have on your board and really kind of understand each personality that you're dealing with and not do it just one way. There's not one perfect, if somebody says there's one perfect way to be a city or county manager, they're lying. They don't know what they're talking about. Each job that I've had, communication's been different with each board. When boards change, communication is different. My expectations of boards have changed. Some like to go out to lunch weekly. Some don't want to see you weekly. Some like the lots of emails and information and weekly updates and all this. Some don't. So it's trying to find that balance of what works well for your community, what works well with your staff, to fully understand where you fit in and how you can help lead the organization.
I love that. I think we have a unique, it's a unique moment that you're retired now. And so again, I'm not a hit list podcast. I'm not the big drama, podcast. There are others for that, but I do think I love that we can probably speak maybe with a little more transparency and honesty, because you're not currently a city manager, when we talk about some of the challenges, because I think that we are in a unique time with just the national scene is so dramatic. The media seems to be on hell bent to just polarize America and fan the flame of chaos. I think I can't imagine trying to be a city manager because it just all seems to drip down too. Like there's just a lot of, I've talked just in the last 3 weeks, the multiple conversations with city managers who are pulling out every last follicle of hair over the stress that's happening at state levels, where states are like, I think of Texas. Texas is like the state is trying to, I guess, again, I don't live there, but basically control like what cities can do in a much more hands-on way. I know here in Washington, the tax thing is just insane. People feel like they're being taxed to death. Local governments don't know, funding's disappearing, incivility. I've seen some videos lately of city hall meetings, and I'm like, I can't believe these are functioning, rational adults. Like, I would never in a million years think it appropriate to speak the way I'm seeing adults speak to one another, just like it's like a junior high locker room of chaos. Like, tell us about, man, again, I'm on the outside. I'm not even right. I've never been a city manager. I just am looking in. Tell us about what it's like. What do you see are the real challenges, the real frustrations, the real things that you've got to, and maybe how do you deal with that? How do you function with some of these challenges and some of the pain points of city management right now?
I think the first thing you have to always realize, they're not mad at you, they're mad at the position. When they fuss and fight, the city manager did this or didn't do that. It is not about Craig Honeycutt individually. It is about they're upset with the position and you just happen to be in the position. So you can't take things personally. Um, Again, as I mentioned before, compromise has now seen to be a bad word. It's a sign of weakness on both sides. And that leaves staff in the middle. But staff just always got to remember, right, wrong, or indifferent, you work for the board. You work for them. You work for the majority of that board. All of them are important, but you work for the majority, and you still share the same information. You still give the same service to all members. But once the vote is taken, that's your policy and that's the direction that you're going into. So I think sometimes we take it too personal, and we look inadvertently at ourselves that it's something we did wrong or something they did wrong, and they just sort of try to piss me off. It's just part of the position. It is something we just have to accept and say, it is what it is. That's okay. It's part of the job. You're going to have wins and you're going to have losses and you're going to have lots of ties. So, again, and that's like any job as well. But don't take things personal. Keep your eye on the big picture that's saying this is public service. This is not service to the left or service to the right. This is for the general public as a whole.
If you were, I know each state usually has a what do you call it, the League of Cities, right? And they do a lot of training with elected officials. Having worked with a number of elected officials at both the city and county level, would you have an encouragement for them to maybe think about how they operate that would help a city manager, a county manager function a little better? Is there any insights you would have there for them?
They need to understand, number one, what a city does first, because, most of them, many people that run have not even been to a city council meeting, or they haven't looked at a website, or they haven't read minutes. They just have one issue that they decide to run on and they win. So first is have an understanding of what your city does and what your staff does and what the responsibilities are. And again, it's not Craig Honeycutt doing this. It's the city manager's role, and understand what that role is. And I think many times we don't fully grasp what our role is. I think elected officials have no idea what their role is. They may think they're a strong mayor in a weak mayor form of government. What I say goes, and everything needs to be my way. That's not the way the charter is set up. That's not the way we operate. That's not what the general statutes say. So it really is having that base understanding of what government does and what your organization does.
So good. How you mentioned with this role again, a city doesn't shut off, a city doesn't sleep. There are, I'm sure, in North Carolina, there are storms, there are things, and those don't call you up and say, hey, when would you like us to happen Monday through Friday between 9 to 5? They usually all happen at midnight or on weekends. And you specifically in your story, I mean, when you said you were in Wayne County, you'd only see your family on weekends and then you're working. I talk a lot about work-life balance. In fact, by the time this airs, I believe I will just have come back from Chicago. I'm going out to speak to the Illinois City County Management Association on work-life balance. My keynote, Balance is BS. How do you thrive in the tension of municipal life and leadership? How did you do it? How did you live? My big thing is you have to live intentionally. and there's no such thing as balance. There's choosing your intention. How did you do that over such a long career? What lessons did you learn in light of how did you take care of Craig so Craig could actually deliver good work, his best work when you were in those specific roles of leadership?
I think is having that good support system. I've had an incredible wife, incredible boys, and now incredible grandchildren. Um, that you put them first. Again, it's not a balance. You just have to prioritize. I don't think there is a work life balance. You can't be 50-50. You just have to prioritize what's important and do what's important. There were some times that, when Wayne County, we had Hurricane Florence. I was in the EOC for about 2 weeks, so couldn't come home. I missed some things. However, that EOC in emergency operations in Wayne County was the most important thing in my life at that time because, we had life safety issues, we had water and sewer issues, we had all these issues that we had to resolve. So Wayne County was the most important. That was my priority. But after that, then family came priority again. So it is making sure you prioritize what needs to be prioritized at the time it needs to be prioritized. Um, and get supportive family and supportive spouses are important and understand they've been through a lot. When they read things in the paper that not very supportive of their dad or very supportive of their husband, it affects him. But again, it goes back to the point, it's the position and not Craig.
So good. So many good things. You just retired as the city manager of Burlington, North Carolina, but of course you can't keep a good man down. Already you're working for Mosley. It's a director. You're the director of local government planning. Tell us about this. It's such. I looked them up real quick. It's an architecture and planning firm. I think it seems really cool. I love thinking about it. It's something I think that I watch a lot of stuff on design and on, even like fashion and history. I love history and seeing how we've developed. And it is kind of interesting when you think about architecture. When you look back at just some of the work humanity has built, these cathedrals, these buildings, and now it seems like a lot of stuff is thrown up pretty quick. It's more about efficiency than it is about. And I wonder if that's where it's one of the things that I would like to see if I can have any influence, especially for local government. You've mentioned local government is usually a longer horizon. And yes, what we do is expensive. And yes, people can cry about their taxes. But I think it's also about place. And when you have something that you can be proud of that doesn't just look like a cookie cutter box, but looks beautiful, that's impressive on the outside, that's impressive on the inside, that gives some character to a place, I think there's something powerful about that. What would you have? Tell us about this new job that you're in and tell us maybe about what you think about those thoughts.
So really my job is, I'll say this, and I'm saying this half jokingly as well. City managers aren't that smart sometimes, so we don't get it, and we may not be able to have good communication with architects or engineers. And when we don't, it kind of goes over our head. So my job, I think I can do, and hopefully well, is I can dumb it down. I'm not that smart, so I can dumb it down and say, here's what they really mean, here's what we really need, or I can carry back to the firm and say, listen, you're too above what they're looking for. This is what they're truly wanting, what they truly need. So really being that liaison between local governments and also the firm, but also being able to let other managers say, hey, I've been there, done that, and I can help you through some public processes, help you working with boards about exactly. Let's get down to the brass tacks of what we are trying to accomplish with this project. So um, that's been fun so far. But I do agree with you on a sense of place. Um, yeah, it's a lot cheaper to do a metal building It's a lot cheaper, square footage wise. But again, you don't do these things every day. And there is such a thing as pride within your community, and the building's got to be functional. But there is a sense of pride in the community that you want your community to say, this is who we are. And yes, this is nice. And yes, we can be proud of what we're doing.
I love that. I love the I talk about a bit. I haven't talked about maybe on the podcast in a while, but I talk about the curse of knowledge, and I think it's one of the issues. Like you just said, it seems like that's what your job is architects have. The more knowledge you have on a subject, the more you'll have a hard time dumbing down. And I think that's the issue of local government sometimes. Again, when we talk about just water, the complexity of water, the science that goes into purifying water and to getting it, the infrastructure, all these things can be so intense that, and we don't realize it. Once you've been working in it, you're just like, yeah, whatever. It's, it's this and this, and EOC, and you have all these acronyms. And I think it's one of the disconnects of why local government has a hard time communicating with their citizens is, I say, the curse of knowledge is on your worst day. In all your, especially like you, Craig, with all your knowledge, with all your experience, you'll never be below an 8 in terms of knowledge. And your citizen, though, in light of their real understanding of local gov, on their best day, will never be above a 3. The gap between a 3 and an 8 is very large. And that's where, again, it's easier for the community person to just throw up their hands and go, whatever. Or the problem, I think, and this is maybe with electeds, is that they think they're a 7. They're a 3, but when someone thinks that they're a 7, and when you're trying to communicate but you're not taking the space to come down and to be patient to really hear them, and you're communicating at an 8 and you think you're at a 3, you're frustrated, they're frustrated, there's just a lot of frustration, and that's when we give up and we just dive into our justification of our way. And I think maybe that's a lesson for all of politics and all of humanity right now, especially Americans, to just maybe just calm down a little bit. I love what you said about there is no the goal is not to have, no one's going to get their way. We have to figure out collaboration. We have to listen to one another. We have to take the time to mine down and go, where do we have a commonality and how can we move forward, instead of just the first brush of disagreement to just shut down and then demonize each other. It's just crazy to me. And especially at the local level where we're trying to deliver the essential services to make life function. And how do we do that? And I think it starts with just everyone taking a little bit of a cooler, everyone just kind of calming down a little bit and going, hey, let me stop assuming everything and maybe let me get to know you a little bit. And that's this podcast. How can we humanize people and leaders a little bit more?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Potholes don't know R or D.
That's right.
Don't care. Sidewalks don't care. But there are essential services that is expected from local government, regardless of RD. And it's like we talked about before, why is compromise such a bad word and seen as a weakness? It is seen as, well, if you compromise, you lost. So both sides, it's a lose-lose. No, it's not a lose-lose. And people are afraid to compromise because they feel like it compromises their values. And it's not compromising their values. There's a billion ways to skin a cat. One of the conversations I have in class was, if you want to talk about a tax increase, I can give you 10 reasons why you should have a tax increase. And then I can give you 10 reasons why you shouldn't have a tax increase. And they're all valid reasons. They're all valid. However, the truth usually and the need lies somewhere within the middle. And that's where we've got to get to. It's not an either or. And it's like you talked about earlier about the knowledge base. That's what I would say about Troy was the greatest thing. You became the jack of all trades and master of none. And it is, I know a little bit about a lot. We don't, as managers, have time to become that subject matter expert in everything that we deal with on a daily day basis. And that's what the importance is of staff. That's what the importance is of having people that you can trust. To have those people that you can say, okay, you're right. I trust you. Move forward.
I love that. And it's one of the things I think I look back at my life. I was a pastor for a number of years. I think a pastor and a city manager have a lot of overlap in the reality of their lives. But before that, I was an orchestral conductor. And I think a conductor has a lot of connection to a city manager because, again, your goal isn't to be a proficient, awesome musician. Your goal is to lead all these different musicians, all these different sections, and to bring harmony, to bring balance, to bring connection so you can make amazing music together. And I think that's some of the things you're talking about is how do we become better conductors of the orchestra that is our city or our county?
No, you're exactly right about a pastor to city manager. I've had the same conversation with our pastor. Your board of deacons is your elected officials. Your congregation is your citizens. And if you've ever been to a church, ain't nobody happy in a church at all times. Somebody said you spent the offering here, you should have spent it on choir robes. Why did you spend it on choir robes? So, and the pastor just like, I got to have peace in the family. So.
That's right. Oh, I love it. Craig, thank you for sharing so many. I could talk to you forever. So many good things, so many good insights. Anything else before we wrap up?
It's an honorable profession. I got truly lucky and blessed to be in the profession as long as I've been. And part of that is great elected officials, but incredible staff that I've worked with over the years. Incredible friends now. One thing I would also encourage managers to do, if you're not active in your association, get active in your association because nobody understands you like somebody who's walked a mile in your shoes and who's been there or who's dealt with something different. Some of my best friends now have been former managers and we're contact, almost weekly or at least text every other week. So it's a great profession. I can go back to the communities that I was at and say, yeah, I was here and I was part of being making this community what it is today and be very proud of that.
I love it. I love it. So good. And yeah, I always love promoting state associations. I think it's important to not just go and learn. They do great training, but it's the relationship, knowing that you have, because again, there's, I can go as a pastor, there's plenty of pastor breakfasts I can go to. As a business owner, I can go down to the Chamber of Commerce and hang out with other business owners. The city manager, there's only one of you in the city. So you've got to make time to find make a priority, the intentionality of going to some of these events, to just rub shoulders, just be able to vent about the things that only you really understand from your level and your angle. So I love it. Craig, thanks for sharing your life, your leadership journey, and your insights. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you. I really appreciate it as well. And enjoyed this conversation and also the first time we met. And I really am honored that you asked me to be a part of it.
The stories we share here on the Halting Winter podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.